many ways, Death Valley is a frustrating place to photograph, or at least that's what I used to believe. The vast scale is impossible to comprehend, let alone to depict in a simple photograph. Many of my past trips to Death Valley have ended with a profound sense of frustration, something I was quick to blame on the landscape itself. But I've since learned this was of my own doing. Perhaps my own struggles in Death Valley are rooted within the language of photography itself. We take photos and we capture images. We seek to take rather than to experience, and to capture rather than listen. Within this land lies untold places, rugged mountains and obscure canyons, salt flats and vast seas of sand, all of which are shaped by the wind. But when the wind calms and the dust settles, a louder voice emerges, the voice of silence. It rises higher than the tallest peaks, filling the voids between mountains and settling among the desert holly and creosote shrubs on the desert floor. It's through this silence that the desert speaks, and only when we take time to listen will we hear its gentle voice, a voice that captures our curiosity, our imagination, and leads to places we never knew existed. On many of those past trips, I didn't take time to listen, instead forcing my own narrative on the landscape, seeking preconceived images and chasing the work of others. The silence of the desert struck a chord of loneliness within me, a feeling that made me question my very purpose as a photographer. But this trip was different. That same silence filled my soul with warmth. It marked a change in my own understanding of this land, an understanding that lays a foundation for many years to come. This is a story of my January of 2022 visit to Death Valley National Park. Well, I have arrived here in Death Valley, and I went ahead and set up my campsite, and then I drove to an area that I shot a photo last year, and I was just curious how this area has changed, and it's changed quite a bit. So the exact area where I'm standing right now, last year was far more defined with regard to all the ridges sort of between these salt pans here. And now it's pretty uniform and not quite as interesting from a photographic perspective. And there was some rain that swept through here in, I believe, late December. And so it kind of flooded out areas and repaves areas, and it's very interesting to see how things change. And I was hoping this area might be decent for a photo this year, but this might not be the year for this particular area. Over the next week or so, supposed to see a lot of blue sky and not much in the way of clouds. If you see back behind me there, you'll see just a tiny bit of high clouds, and even those are supposed to go away here pretty soon. But I think I'm gonna head over the dunes now, wander around a little bit, and just see if I can find some interesting compositions and interesting subjects for the days to come. But pretty excited to be here, and I look forward to what I might be able to capture in the next week or so. Well, it is now early evening, and came over here to the sand dunes at about 1 o'clock and just wandered around a lot. And I found 3 potential subjects. There's this area with these interesting kind of like mud tiles with these big cracks and sand in between. And it looked really interesting, but I just struggled to understand how the light would be on that particular subject for that sort of twilight sort of light. So I decided to wait on that one. But I also found this area here with this interesting coarse sand with some finer sand below it and above it. And it has some interesting structure to it. There's some strong diagonals to it, which I'm always a big fan of when it comes to photos. Diagonals just give interesting motion to a photo. So I set up my camera with my normal lens, and we'll see what happens here. I honestly don't really know what's going to happen with the light. I'm targeting the time when the sun drops just partially below the horizon, just where you get this sort of harsh yet soft mix of the light. And I honestly have no clue how this subject will look at that time, and that's the really challenging part about working with large format for this type of photography, because you don't really know how it looks until the light is there, but you have to set up pretty far in advance. So we'll see what happens. But if this does work out, it would be pretty awesome to expose the first sheet of film on the trip, because there's something about that barrier where once you cross that, then things kind of fall in place a little bit easier. So we'll see. I got probably about half hour until the light does its thing, and we'll see what happens. There goes the light. I honestly have no clue what to expect for this one. We'll see. I don't know if I'm in love with the composition, but we'll find out. So even though I have some questions in my mind about the photo I shot today, and I have some doubts about the composition, about the light, I still have a sense of accomplishment. And that's really important when shooting film, because I have no clue how that photo turned out. Might be horrible, might be good. I don't know. You guys will see it in just a few here, but for me, it'll be a couple weeks or so. But that sense of accomplishment, that carries through. It gets me excited about finding more subjects, and gets me excited about being out in this really nice light right now. And on the way back to my truck, I found another area I think would be pretty good for a subject. Some really nice dried mud that has a look of like cobbles in a street. So that's pretty cool. But I'm gonna head back to camp, grab some dinner, and just enjoy my little stroll through the desert here. And we'll see what tomorrow brings. Of the 3 potential subjects I found that day, I'm glad I chose that small formation of sand. The wind was calm and the light was fleeting, and overall I'm quite satisfied with the results. The diagonal emphasis combined with the soft, low-angle light made for a very interesting image, one for which the scale feels perhaps a bit ambiguous. The following day, a significant dust storm would sweep through the park, forever erasing the subject. A subject as fleeting as the very light I photographed it in. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you around next time. If you enjoy this ad-free and clickbait-free content and want to help me live my dream, a voluntary contribution of just $24 a year helps keep my gas tank full and my film freezer stocked. For more information on how to support me and my work, please visit the donation section of my website at benhorn.com/donate. I also have prints in my portfolio box set available on my website. You can find a direct link down below in the show notes. Thanks in advance for your support.